So we have said a few things about God's eternal purpose in our lives. The primary issue, I think, is to believe that we have it and you have it. And welcome to this morning's simple truth from the Word of God. And we have also mentioned that the eternal purpose of God is specified, defined by the Word of God that we receive into our hearts. Also that this is something that elevates our lives sort of to a different plane, and I want to go back to that because that's so powerful. And I just want to say this, that the eternal purpose of God being a working force in our lives, being active in our lives, yes, being active in our lives, it depends on faith. Only faith activates the eternal purpose of God in our lives. Without faith, how could I please Him, says Hebrews 11. And Hebrews 11 also talks about this very clearly, that if we look at some people's lives in the Bible, they have lived incredible lives, amazing lives. But how did they live it? Well, they lived by faith. Like Noah built an ark, but he wasn't just building an ark. He was part of God's eternal purpose for all of humanity and all of creation. God very clearly involved him in something greater than himself. We could say the same thing about Abraham. God just told Abram, walk around in different places and be a sojourner, be a wanderer in the world, and just live like that. And that was his purpose. And no, that wasn't his purpose. No, so there was something much greater than that in God's will for him. And it was that he would, the nation of Israel and then Jesus and so many things. And I can't even go into it. But this is such a good point, that only through faith are we able to walk in it, to live in it, to have the eternal purpose of God be an active ingredient in our lives, in our stories. And this is so important because it's only by faith that we can do this, that we can take this. But I want to say it to you, it's not just the people in Hebrews 11, it's also you. When you live in faith, when you walk in faith, you go beyond your natural limits, and we know this. It doesn't mean faith in people and people's opinions, but it is trusting God for to use everything for our benefit in our lives. It is trusting God for the things that He lays on our hearts, that He gives to us to walk in, learning to obey Him in His will by faith. And by faith we then can say, oh, I'm living a different life. Now, in many companies we hear these there are these trainings that try to show the bigger picture to the everyday working Joe, and then in the hopes that they will be more committed to the company's purpose. And like you can be working Joe who is told, take this from here and take it there, and that's all your life and that's what you're doing. But how much better if you, working Joe, know that by taking this from here to there, you're part of a global supply chain. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that, because maybe to take something from here to there, I don't need to know any more than that. That's all that it involves. But God has called us to something greater. He has invited us to something way more beautiful. God has not meant for us to be mindless drones taking one thing from one place to another, saying something because it needs to be said. God bless you, in a robotic voice. Like God has not meant for us to be that way, but He meant for us to have our hearts, our minds, our souls in everything that He invites us into. And for this, we need faith. And by faith we can know, because we're not just called to take this from here to there, but we are called to be involved in God's will for that person, for that situation. We are called to be involved in something beautiful and powerful that cannot even be described by our weak words. We could say that by faith we can see the underside of God's eternal purpose. Okay, we could say it maybe this way, that I can see the small movements, the small moments of His great purpose. By living in faith, you have little deeds and little words and little prayers, but by faith when we do these things in obedience, then they call us into something mighty, and we realize that our lives are greater than our own in His eternal purpose. God bless you with that truth for this day.